by Friends of India Society International. I'm Vivek Sinha, one of the General Secretaries of FISI, welcoming you to this great conference on one of the most important issue, which is going to shape geopolitics in a manner never seen before. As you know, the Friends of India Society International has conducted seminar, workshop, and presentation and invites distinguished persons on matters of India and the world at large. Friends of India Society International plans to educate the Friends of India all over the world in support of India causes and the world togetherness. In this series, we have a very live discussion led by our own Dr. Adit Adityanjee. And today's topic is Taliban resurgence in Afghanistan. Before we go further, at this time, I would like to request our international president, Dr. Bhishma Agnihotri, to say a few words, and then he can introduce Dr. Adityanjee as well. Thank you.
So it's my pleasure and almost honor requesting our speaker to speak, to say something. I mean, all of you have so much information about him that one of the person who saw the information, he called me. He said that it is true that a person is doing so many things. I said, I don't know. I think so. He's a physician. He's a psychiatrist. He's an intellectual. He's dealing with the human rights, geopolitics, religious freedom issues, and all the other kind of things he's doing. And I said, that's true. It's possible if a person happens to be Adityan. And he has twice Adityan. So therefore, he is doing it all right. And I know him, heard about him, I worked with him, and he's part of our team. And I know he's a very quiet, very solid person, and person with greatest commitment to India and Indian causes. And everything he has seen in the world has seen from the angle of how it affects India. We, basically most of us are from India, and we have that kind of desire to see that India's interests are properly protected. And so we should just educate people on the issues involved and issues before us. So I requested Adityanjee to talk to us and lead the discussion, because this is not a lecture you can give and matter is over, because the matter is still going on. The issue is still pending. Everything is going on at this time. So therefore, there is nothing conclusive happening. It is so therefore, I think it's a good idea for us to talk and discuss, and with the guidance of Adityanjee at this time. So I think I will request Adityanjee to start the process. And of course, as you know, perhaps, or you don't know, Adityanjee is also part of our team, as I mentioned earlier. He is our vice president for the US branch. Okay, so it's a great pleasure. I'm requesting Adityanjee to lead the discussion.
Thank you very much indeed, Bhishmji, for your kind introduction. As Bhishmji already said, that this topic is very fluid topic. There are things still happening. When I discussed this with Vivekji, I said that maybe I will do it totally as discussion, but then we came to a kind of conclusion that maybe I will have some discussion about. I'm trying to share my screen.
Yes, we can see right now.
Okay, you can see it. Okay. So let me just, okay. Yeah. So I said that maybe I can have a brief presentation followed by the discussion. So I will start with the presentation and I will quickly run through slides so that we have good chance of a solid discussion. So that is the topic today on Taliban resurgence in Afghanistan. My greetings to all the audience and my, greetings to Bhishmji for inviting me for this particular topic. As you already said that whatever I discuss with one thing in mind, and that is this flag, and that is the motherland. So any discussion I would have, there will be some discussion about these two things. So let's start with Afghanistan. Afghanistan is a neighboring country to India. So whatever happens in Afghanistan does impact India. So you see that there is definitely a land border between Afghanistan and India. Unfortunately, that land border is in adverse possession of Pakistan at this point in time. That is part of Pakistan occupied Kashmir and Pakistan occupied Ladakh. But Afghanistan is a land neighbor to India. This gives you the location of Afghanistan in Central Asia. And you see all these Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, etc. In Central Asia, showing the geopolitical and geographical centrality of Afghanistan in Central Asia. Again, this gives the 34 provinces of Afghanistan. This map is not politically correct because it does not completely show the parts of India, but I just wanted to show this map because of various provinces. And I go on to the next map, which is politically correct, and again shows the land border with India. It has been said in geopolitics that Afghanistan is the graveyard of empires. You had British Empire, 3 Anglo-Afghan wars in which British armies were defeated. And then you had a decade-old Soviet Union occupation of Afghanistan from 79 to 89. And then again from 2001 to 2021, occupation or presence of United States and NATO forces. And everyone echoes the saying, Afghanistan is a graveyard of empires. Actually, situation is much more complex. I don't know whoever knows this person. This is Maharaja Ranji Singh. As part of Maharaja Ranjit Singh's Sikh Empire, under his general Hari Singh Nalwa, Afghanistan was part of the Sikh Empire with capital at Lahore. After Maharaja Ranjit Singh conquered Multan in 1818, Jammu and Kashmir in 1819, his forces under Banda Hari Singh Nalwa conquered Dera Ghazi Khan in 1820, Dera Ismail Khan in 1821. At that time, the Afghan leadership asked for jihad. A big Afghan army collected on the bank of Kabul River in Nowshera, and Ranjit Singh's army won, and Afghans were dispersed in 1823. Subsequently, Maharaja Ranjit Singh also conquered Peshawar in 1834. So the saying that Afghanistan is a graveyard of empire is not truly correct. So this is Maharaja Ranjit Singh's empire. After death of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, the British conspired and subdivided Afghanistan to manage the Pashtuns and Pakhtuns. So you see this famous, line that is dividing the the Pashtun territory in Afghanistan versus current day Pakistan. That is the Durand line. And this map actually tells you the location of Kabul versus Panjshir Valley and various landmarks in central Afghanistan, the site where Bamiyan Buddhas were located. If we go a little bit deeper into the history, Afghanistan had always been part of India from the time of Mahabharata. It was called Gandhar, from which the modern day Afghan city of Kandahar comes from. It was a vibrant ancient Indian province that gave the world excellent art, architecture, literature, and scientific knowledge. And you know where Gandhari came from. Gandhari, the wife of King Dhritarashtra. And you know where Mama Shakuni came from. He was the brother of Gandhari, who came from Gandhar to Hastinapur to be part of Hastinapur's and royal court, came along with his sister Gandhari. After Alexander's ill-fated invasion in 4th century BC, the region of Afghanistan became more eclectic because it became a melting point of Indian and Greek cultures, and that was very liberal, very cultural oriented, far away from today's Afghanistan, which is infested by Taliban. So even in medieval ages, there was Hindu Shahi dynasty in Afghanistan from 850 to 10,026 Common Era. And this Shahi dynasty had at least 56 kings. Some of them are mentioned here. And it was only in 11th century AD, after the defeat of Hindu Shahi by Safavid and Ghaznavi empires, that Afghanistan came under Muslim and Islamic influence and the demographic change. So you see this map of Hindu Shahi dynasty. Kabul was the first capital, and Udabhandapura was the next capital of Hindu Shahis in this area. And this is the famous Amb Hindu temple complex that was built between 7th and 9th century by the Hindu Shahi empires. This is the coinage, the bulls and the horsemen coins of Hindu Shahi empire. And this is the famous Ek Linga Mukha. Ek Mukha Linga, a Shiva Linga that was found in Hindu Shahi empire in excavations. So from that time to recent Afghanistan demographics still show that it is a pluralistic society, multi-ethnic society with a population of 31 million or so residents. Only 42% are Pashtuns. Afghanistan is not Pashtunistan, it is different. 27% are ethnic Tajiks, 9% are Hajaras, 9% are Uzbeks, 4% are Ajmaks who are tribals, 3% are Turkmen, 2% are Baloch, and 4% fall into quote unquote unspecified or other categories. Let's look at the religious composition of Afghanistan. And I'm emphasizing the ethnic cleansing and cultural genocide in Afghanistan that has gone over the last 3 decades. The religions in Afghanistan in 1947 were as follows. Only 84% were adherents of Islam. Only 84% in 47 under King Zahir Shah. 8.2% were Sikh. These were Afghani Sikhs, not migrants from India. 2.5% were Buddhists. 2.1% were Afghani Hindus, and others were 3.1%. In 2012, the religious demographic changed in Afghanistan to 90% Sunni Islam, 9.7% Shia Islam, and only 0.3% other religions. So you already see from 47 to 2012, how much the religious demographic changed from a multi-religious, multi-ethnic country to a Sunni-dominated Wahhabi country. So who created Afghanistan? Who created Taliban? The literal meaning of word Taliban is students. The singular form is Talib, the plural form is Taliban. Taliban were created in 1994 by Pakistan's ISI. Money was supplied by CIA and USA for the fight of Mujahideen against the godless communist empire, Soviet Union. PM of Pakistan at that time was very secular Benazir Bhutto, and Nasirullah Babar was the Minister of Interior. ISI was the agency tasked by the Prime Minister of Pakistan with creation of Taliban in the Deobandi madrasas in the border areas between Pakistan, the FATA, federally administered tribal area, Waziristan, and the Northwest province. So if you look at Taliban's history, from 1994 to 1996, it was an insurgent militia fighting against the Islamic regime of the Mujahideens who had come to power at that time under Burhanuddin Rabbani. From 1996 to 2001, Taliban were the ruling government of Afghanistan. And from 2002 to 2021, after the 9/11 attacks and US strikes against Afghanistan, Taliban government was overthrown. Taliban went back into insurgency mode, and currently they are really not in government, but they are in control of the territory of Afghanistan. The government has not been announced. So before we go on to what Taliban might do now, let's see what they did when they were in power from 1996 to 2001. This was the darkest period of time in Afghanistan for minorities, especially Hindus, Sikhs, and Buddhists. They were constantly harassed, persecuted, killed for showing the slightest display of their faiths, and had their properties forcefully taken. They even forced Hindus and Sikhs to wear yellow armbands for identification, just like the Nazis did in Hitler's time in Germany, when Jews were asked to wear a yellow band to, overtly segregate them from Christians. Jews were forced to wear the yellow Star of David by Hitler's Germany. In 2001, Taliban destroyed the historic Bamiyan Buddha statues that were carved into mountains. And in their first tenure in government, 15,000 ethnic minority Hazaras, who happened to be of Shia Islamic faith, were slaughtered in a single town. So it was not just Hindus, Sikhs, and Buddhists, it was every non-Sunni religious minority. During that time, the population of Hindus and Sikhs declined. Population of 700,000 of Hindus and Sikhs were there in 1970s. In 80s, they declined to 200 to 300,000. And actually, in last 2 to 3 years, the estimates were that only 15,000 remain. And this year, the estimate was that only 1,350 Hindus and Sikhs remained in Afghanistan. So this is one of the pictures of the Bamiyan Buddha, the smaller one, 38-meter tall. And this is the larger one, the male one, 55-meter Western Buddha. In 2018, a suicide bomber in Jalalabad targeted a crowd of Afghan Hindus and Sikhs who had arrived there to meet the then President Ashraf Ghani. This attack killed 19 people and wounded 10 others, including Sikh and Hindu community leaders. In March of 2020, a 6-hour-long siege of a Sikh temple was held in which 25 people were killed. And so this actually brings to the fore what may happen in future. Persecution of Hindus and Sikhs has persisted. There are only 2 to 4 gurdwaras left in Afghanistan and a single Hindu temple. These sites have been seen as safe sanctuaries by Hindus and Sikhs, and in the current hostilities, they were actually gathered into this temple as well as in the Sikh gurdwaras. Very recently, Taliban forces removed the sacred Nishan Sahib from Sikh Guru Nanak Sahib Gurdwara and tied it to a tree so that it will not be visible from a distance, so that it does not offend Muslims. In this year, there were only 50 Hindus left in Afghanistan. All of them were evacuated by the government of India. Only one Hindu person, the temple priest, Pandit Rajesh Kumar, who has been left there in Ratan Nath temple in Kabul. And he says that if Taliban kill me, I'll consider it my seva. I'm not going to leave my temple. There are around 136 Sikhs left in Kabul. Taliban government does not want them to leave Afghanistan, although they have given statements that later on, if they want to leave, they can leave. We'll give them safe passage, but they are confined to a Gurdwara. 3 swarups of Guru Granth Sahib have been brought, carried over the heads by Sikh evacuees from Afghanistan, and 2 Afghan Sikh MPs were evacuated to India. So that is the story, and this is the Ratan Nath temple in Kabul, where the priest is still there. So what is Taliban 2.0? There's a lot of discussion in the press that they are reformed, they are not the same Taliban that were there, they are more sophisticated. Their leaders now can speak English, they can give press conferences, they can reassure the international media by duplicitous and fake assurances and false promises. So there is a dichotomy here. You see that the central leadership of Taliban is giving conciliatory statements to the press that they want to keep good relations with every country, including India. But at the provincial level, the Taliban leaders are going door to door, arresting and killing people, whether it is minorities or whether it's the supporters of the previous government. Women are not being allowed to work. Women's protest was terminated violently. 3 female policemen were killed, including an 8-month pregnant police officer. So they have also made statement that they will impose Sharia, not only in Afghanistan, but also in the entire world. They say that they want to intervene in the India's union territory of Jammu and Kashmir because they are Muslims. So my own assessment is that leopard never changes its spots. Taliban 1.0 is the same as Taliban 2.0, and you shall see as the story unfolds. And of course, they are not a homogeneous group. They are predominantly Pashtuns, but there are other tribal and ethnic backgrounds also. But they were politically somewhat divided. There were 4 shuras or majlis or 4 kind of gatherings or congregations. So the famous one was Quetta Shura, where Mullah Omar was stationed before his death. There was Peshawar Shura, there was Miran Shah Shura, all 3 in Pakistan, and there was Doha Shura in Qatar, where Stanikzai was stationed, Sher Muhammad Abbas Stanikzai. And these shuras were supported by ISI, GHQ, Imran Khan Niazi, and Pakistan government. Taliban 2.0 are in a loose alliance with Haqqani Network, Al-Qaeda, Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, Daesh, or so-called Islamic State in Khorasan province, and other terrorist groups. And as all of you know, that they still have not been able to form the government, despite controlling the territory of Afghanistan since August 15, because of infighting between Taliban 2.0 and the Haqqani network as to who will be head of the government, whether it be Mullah Baradar or Siraj Haqqani. So after the fall of Abdul Ghani government on August 15th, I published an op-ed piece in a website called boloji.com on August 17th. And I had suggested a 12-point program as to how international community, including United Nations, need to move forward to contain the spread of Taliban. And I will, read those 12 points. First one was that United Nations Security Council must invoke the Chapter 7 of the United Nations Charter and authorize both military and non-military action in the Afpak region. United Nations must not give recognition to Taliban 2.0 control regime in Afghanistan. The next step should be declaring Afghanistan, FATA region of Pakistan, and the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Pakistan province of Islamic Republic of Pakistan as UN protectorates. FATA and the KP province of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan have to be secured to prevent free flow of terrorist movement from one sanctuary across the border to the other side. All kind of financial help through World Bank, IMF, and Asian Development Bank must not be given to Taliban-controlled regime. There must be financial sanctions that are hard from the beginning, as Taliban spokespersons have already started talking about extending Sharia law over the entire world. Since there were indications that China is likely to recognize Taliban 2.0 regime, it was requested that member nations of Chinese-controlled financial institutions, and there are two of them, Asian Infrastructure Development Investment Bank, AIIB, and the NDB, the New Development Bank of the BRICS. Other member countries must exercise a veto so that no low interest soft loans are extended to Taliban controlled Afghanistan. Taliban's violation of human rights, women's rights, and illegal narcotic trade calls for their criminal trials for crimes against humanity through the International Criminal Court in The Hague. For sake of humanity, Taliban terrorists must not be given a free pass. A process akin to Nuremberg trials must be initiated to bring Taliban to justice. Strict financial sanctions must be imposed on the Islamic Republic of Pakistan for its complicity and duplicity in supporting Taliban 2.0, and it should be put on the blacklist of FATF, Financial Action Task Force, rather than on the gray list. The final step should involve deployment of UN peacekeeping forces in the area that have the authority to maintain law and order, peace, and have the right to fire on Taliban fighters. The UN mandate must involve demilitarization of the Afpak region, terrorist networks, confiscation and destruction of the $85 billion worth of armament, modern armament that US has left there. And lastly, UN must take adequate steps so that Pakistan's nuclear weapons are out of reach of Taliban 2.0, Al-Qaeda, and other jihadi terror groups. It is very, very important because in the time between 1996 and 2001, when Taliban government was in control of Afghanistan, two scientists who were members of Pakistan Atomic Energy Commission traveled to Kandahar to meet with Osama bin Laden and did discuss transfer of technology for radiological bomb to Al-Qaeda. So that is a possibility that is still there if Taliban continues to remain in control of the region. So what has happened since post-US withdrawal in Afghanistan? A group of countries that include US, UK, Qatar, and Pakistan helped the transfer of power to Taliban. It was not a military victory per se. There was, though, accord, which was signed between US in March of 2020 and Taliban, based in Doha, in which Afghan government was bypassed. So everything is moving according to the script. CIA chief was in Kabul recently before the fall of the government. And as we speak, the ISI chief, Lieutenant General Faiz Hamid, is in Serena Hotel in Kabul, Afghanistan, directing not only the government formation, but also a very overt Pakistani invasion of the Panjshir Valley, where Pakistani drones and Pakistani Air Force fighter planes and attack helicopters have been bombing the Northern Alliance. Russia, China, Pakistan, and Iran have kept their embassies open in Kabul. They are engaging with Taliban. China has its own mercantile and commercial interests. They want to start mining copper, extract lithium and rare earths. They are estimated $1 trillion worth of these mineral deposits in Afghanistan. During Taliban 1.0 region, China and Taliban-controlled government had signed an accord. However, that accord could not be implemented, and there is every likelihood if China recognizes the Taliban 2.0 government and there's conditions favorable to China, China will do that. So what US has done, it has frozen $9 billion of Central Bank of Afghanistan funds. So they are not going to go to Taliban. IMF has suspended soft loan of $460 million to Afghanistan. Having said that, some UN agencies continue to work with Afghanistan. The Deputy Undersecretary for Humanitarian Assistance, I think Martin Griffith, held a meeting with Mullah Baradar on Sunday. This is not the time to give wrong signals to this terrorist group. Very rightly, Indian government has adopted a wait and watch policy. They are talking to Taliban, but they have not recognized it. And they have discussed their apprehensions, what may likely to happen. So you have this National Resistance Front of Afghanistan based in Panjshir Valley, supported by or led by Ahmad Massoud Jr., the former government's vice president, Amrullah Saleh, has declared himself acting president of Afghanistan. Ali Nazari is the head of their foreign office. Now, these people have been leading the resistance. Initially, they gave a tough fight to Taliban. A lot of Taliban soldiers were killed and taken as prisoners. But then Pakistan intervened directly over the last 2 days by bombing their positions, causing the retreat of National Resistance Front of Afghanistan. At this point in time, Taliban have proclaimed victory over Panjshir Valley. What they do is they control the 102-kilometer long main valley road of Panjshir Valley. But actually, the resistant fighters are in the hills. So the war is not over yet. This shows you the Panjshir Valley in the red. And this again shows you this map shows the Panjshir Valley. It's almost 2 hours away from Kabul, and it shows you the Panjshir River. And this is the Panjshir Valley. So ongoing invasion is not of Taliban. It is of Pakistan. Pakistan's ISI's Director General, Lieutenant General Faiz Hamid is sitting in Kabul directing these operations. Now, if I may go back to Taliban 1.0 government, when United States attacked after 9/11 Afghanistan, Pakistani government negotiated with Donald Rumsfeld to evacuate 8,000 Pakistani military men from the northern areas, mainly town of Kunduz. So Pakistani have always been there. They always take this ruse of tribal invasion like they did in 1948 in Jammu and Kashmir, the tribals invaded Jammu and Kashmir. If you remember 1999, the invasion of Kargil, they again said it was the tribals, but it was the regular Pakistani army. So they are using that burqa or euphemism of Taliban or tribals doing this war, but it is actually Pakistani war with fighter planes, attack helicopters and drone attacks. Taliban cannot fly the fighter planes and attack helicopters. They don't have the pilots, they don't have the expertise. So it's just a cover of Taliban that has been used. The Taliban have been successful in subduing the Panjshir Valley, but it is the Pakistani army. War is not over, war is still ongoing. As we speak, almost 2 hours ago, there were 3 fighter planes that took over from Tajikistan's Dushanbe air base. No, it's not very well known that before the fall of government, 64 fighter planes belonging to Afghan Self-Defense Army or National Force, Afghan Self-Defense Force, had flown into Tajikistan to avoid being captured by Taliban. And it is speculated that 3 of those fighter planes now bomb back Taliban positions in Panjshir Valley. There are concerns about humanitarian issues in Panjshir Valley because Pakistanis have been indiscriminately bombing the civilians also. I will recall this Subhashitam. Ashwam naiva, gajam naiva, vyaghram naiva cha, ajaputram balim dadhatu, devo durbala ghataka. It means not the horse, not the elephant, not the tiger, but only the lamb is sacrificed in a ritual. Even the gods do not protect the weak. So moral of the story is that if you are weak, other people are going to walk over you, whether you are Hindus or Sikhs in India or Jammu and Kashmir or Afghanistan. So you have to be strong. And lastly, the moral message for India is that it is your road and yours alone. Others may walk it with you, but no one can walk it for you. And this is a famous saying by philosopher Rumi. So that is what is message for India, that nobody is with you and you'll have to take steps to guard your geostrategic interests. And that ends my presentation, and I'll be happy to lead a discussion. Okay, I think there is a question from Mr. Piyush Agarwal. Kindly unmute yourself.
Yes. Mute yourself, Piyush ji.
Unmute yourself, Piyush ji. He's on mute.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes.
Yes. Bhai Sahab, namaskar.
Namaskar.
I have been in this world for a long time. I have never heard such an outstanding presentation. I don't know how you did it. Bhishamji told me that you are a doctor. I did not know that a medical doctor would have so much politics and gyan in his wisdom. I salute you, brother. Thank you very much. Outstanding job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I see Surendra Sharma ji has raised his hand. Kindly unmute yourself, Surendra ji.
Ranji, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
हाँ नमस्ते जैसा भी उन्होंने कहा ब्यूटीफुल वंडरफुल प्रेजेंटेशन इन डेप्थ मैं बस जरा ये जानना चाह रहा था कि आपने कहा ना कि इंडियन पॉलिसीज इंडिया की पॉलिसी है वेट एंड वॉच तो इसके पीछे इनकी क्या आइडियोलॉजी फिलॉसफी हो सकती है आई मीन व्हाई दे आर वेटिंग एंड वाचिंग
I do not speak for the government of India. but I've read some of the consensus statements from very senior retired foreign policy establishment officers, and I concur with that. Okay, the situation on the ground is very fluid. Now, nation states do not make hurried mistakes. Okay, so you may take a considered action, but you are not going to declare it openly. And Indian policy has been always, foreign policy has never been adventurous. Okay, if they are going to do something, they also have to factor in how this conflict spills over into India. I mean, it's not very well known that when Afghanistan was under Taliban control from 1996 to 2001, the terrorism did impact India. The terrorists were smuggled across the border into Jammu and Kashmir. So Indian government has to factor everything into consideration. And I am pretty sure they are planning for every contingency. More than that, they are not going to say openly what they are going to do. You know, there's a famous saying, and I will actually invoke it. You don't have to hang bones on your neck to say that you are a meat eater. You know, so whatever Indian government will do, it will be done taking into consideration India's geostrategic interests. I think Vijay Nilekani had raised the hand.
Yeah. Excellent presentation. Thank you very much, Adityanjee. One comment I had was that your presentation didn't mention Saudi and Emirati money. There's a lot of money from Kuwait, Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia, and United Arab Emirates that has gone to the Taliban and to Pakistan, especially during the 90s and during the rise of the Taliban. There was a huge amount of Arab money also, petrodollars that have gone also to this country, has gone into this conflict.
I think I would compliment you for bringing that observation. I was trying to keep it brief, so I just skimmed over some of the issues. Pakistan is a rentier state. It collects rents from wherever it can. And yes, we know that Saudi money did come. Money did come from other, not only Gulf country, but from pretty much all the Islamic countries. Even Taliban 2.0 is not all Pashtuns or ethnic Afghans. There are a lot of foreign fighters. There are fighters from ISIS, the Islamic State. Their stated goal is to have what they call it actually Islamic State in Khorasan province. And if you remember historically what their implication is of Khorasan province, that includes Indian subcontinent. So there's a lot of things happening, and you know we don't want to talk about it to just inflame the passions. But yes, there was a lot of actually money from Saudi Arabia. The other thing that I did not mention was the project of Ziaul Haq, strategic depth, concept of strategic depth, under which attempts were made to de-Afghanize and de-Persianize and de-Indianize Afghanistan as well as Pakistan, and Arabize and Wahhabize the Islamic society in these two countries so that Pakistan gets strategic depth. In fact, my latest op-ed piece that came in boloji.com says that Taliban, Pakistan's strategic depth in Afghanistan and the way forward. So I did not mention even that, you know, the concept of strategic depth. Pakistan is acting accordingly. They don't care what happens. Ultimately, this becomes quote unquote half-Pak region. So very well that you brought that point, and I take the point.
Aditji, thank you for a nice lecture. I have a quick question. How come Islamic countries are not coming forward to recognize Taliban?
Okay, so if we go back to the history, there were only 4 countries that had recognized the government of Taliban from 1996 to 2001. The government was in power for a period of 4 years, only 4 countries. The first ones were Pakistan and Saudi Arabia. The third one was Abu Dhabi, UAE. I don't remember which was the 4th one. So the government can be recognized if government is in place. There's no government in place in Afghanistan since August 15. Taliban is in control of the territory, but they are not in governments because there's no government announced by them. Actually, Amrullah Saleh has claimed that he is acting president of Afghanistan per legal constitution of Afghanistan that is in place. The vice president becomes the acting president if president is incapacitated. So the legal situation de jure is that there is still a government of Afghanistan which may not be in possession of its territory, but it is functioning. Afghan, self-defense national force has retreated, and part of that is leading the resistance. And this news 2 hours ago that 3 fighter planes took off from Tajikistan and bombed Taliban positions. There is every indication that these are the fighter Air Force planes of Afghanistan Defense Forces that are based now in Tajikistan. So the question of recognize the government comes only when there's government in place. There's no Taliban government in place right now.
Thank you.
Yes, Vijay. Vijay?
Yeah, I just want to mention that there is a lot of risk for Pakistan itself with this whole situation in Afghanistan. The Pashtuns are actually divided into 2 countries. They are Pakistani citizens and Afghan citizens. And there's a lot of nationalism among the Pashtuns. So there is a real risk that there'll be a major civil war in Pakistan because essentially the Pashtuns have been, the Afghan government for a long time has been complaining that just like Kashmir was divided, the Pashtunistan also was divided by the British. And there is a lot of inherent nationalism apart from Islam, which could destabilize Pakistan in a very big way. And if that happens, I think the other provinces of Pakistan also, there's a lot of discontent and unhappiness in the Sindh and in Balochistan. Hello?
Yeah, I got your point. I
think there is a risk for Pakistan itself, and India should actually leverage that and, if possible, help encourage it.
Well, Pakistan is a risk-taking country. They always take risks, and they always negotiate with a gun to their own head. They're, always their, this thing is that, well, we will nuke you, we will be destroyed. So they don't care. I think they have this calculation that it does not matter whether they are Pashtuns or Tajiks or Hazaras, they are Muslims. So if Pakistani identity is gone, there still be an Islamic state there. That's their calculation. They want strategic depth against India. For them, the border does not matter. They would not like the Durand line that British had drawn. Incidentally, even Taliban say that they do not honor the Durand line because that agreement was with British Empire for a period of 100 years. The Durand line British had actually drawn in 1893. So by 1993, it was supposedly for 100 years, it should have gone. Pakistan refused to, give the territories back to Afghanistan, and Afghanistan was not in a position to enforce the treaty with the successor state of the British Empire. So yes, there are risks to Pakistan. Those risks were well known to them, but they don't care because they feel that it is only Muslims who are going to be in territory, whatever their ethnicity. So whether Pakistan is taken over by Afghanistan or Afghanistan is taken by Pakistan, it remains part of the caliphate. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but there are also a lot of nationalistic forces within Islam, because I think the Pashtuns, for example, are a very, very disenchanted minority in Pakistan, and so are the Sindhi.
Look, Pakistan is a transitional state. You know that, I know that. When this experiment will end, nobody can predict at this point in time.
Correct.
In 1947, the nattering nabobs of negativism were predicting breakup of India. Nobody predicted breakup of Pakistan. It broke down and got partitioned into two, Bangladesh and Pakistan. There is a separatist movement going on in Balochistan. Balochistan was an independent country, or Riyasat of Kalat. Pakistan forcibly occupied it. So there is a separatist movement already going in Balochistan. There is a separatist movement going in Sindhu Desh, in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. There is a separatist movement. But Pakistani generals have a different calculation. They are willing to take these risks because they feel that as long as the territory is Islamic, they have no fears.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
I have one question.
Sure.
Dr. Purohit, can you hear me there?
Yes, Dr. Purohit.
Okay. Now, it was a great history lesson today for me. And right from so many years back up to now. So it was a wonderful talk. And I really salute you on that part. One thing I'd like to know that, like Pakistan is Sunnis, and this Al-Qaeda is they're all Sunnis, and Iran is a Shia.
Yes.
So how they get along? Do they think they will get along with each other, or there will be always a fight with them?
Okay,
And
so
India should go with Iran, and then
okay.
in case in the trouble if we have.
So the relationship between Pakistan and Iran is very complex. Both are Islamic nations. Iran is a Shia nation. Pakistan is a Sunni nation, 85% Sunni, around 15% Shia. Afghanistan is a pluralistic country ethnically and religiously. When I went through the divide, at this point in time, around 90% are Sunni and around 9% are Shias. Actually, Iran has expressed grave concern at the bombing of civilians in Panjshir Valley. And they say that they are going to investigate what happened. The implicit is the assumption that they will take some action, either domestically or internationally, because people in Panjshir Valley are Tajiks and Hazaras who are Shia, okay? Iran has had, despite India being a secular country and not Islamic country, Iran has a good relationship with India. So it becomes a complex dance. In the geopolitical theater, you have to dance. And at this point in time, although Iran wants to keep its influence there and has embassy open, but their eyes are wide open about any possible genocide of Shias or, ethnic minorities that are Shia, which is basically Tajiks and Hazaras and some of the Azmaks. So Iran's posture is engaging the Taliban government while protecting the civilian population that is of Shia faith, and that is what they are trying to do. Yes, Indian government will be probably working with the Iranian government and other governments and consulting with everyone and making appropriate responses when the time comes. But India does not have much leverage because we don't have a land access, because that is blocked by Pakistan at this point in time, with POL and POK being there. I saw Surendra Sharmaji raise his hand once again. Surendraji?
Yeah, namaste. Namaste. If you have time, I just thought, I have read, in a few places that the Americans have left a large amount of armory, weaponry And this baffles me. I mean, the Americans, they know deep down in their heart that whether it's Al-Qaeda, whether it's Taliban, and all these militia, they are all anti-West, anti-American. So why would they leave all these weaponry in their right mind? Maybe I think perhaps these weapons are not really usable, or Taliban will not be in a position to operate these. So I'm just baffled that, is it true? Have they really left all these stuff there?
Okay, so the situation is a little bit more complex. In 20 years of US presence, and while they were trying to build Afghan forces, the defense assistance was given to Afghanistan Defense Forces, and they have left $85 billion worth of armament. That's an eye-opening statement, $85 billion of armament. And if you look at the type of armament that was left, it included fighter planes, it included fighter helicopters, it included Humvees, it included armed personnel carriers. It also included actually small arms. It included more than 200,000 Humvees. Now, what American forces did was to disable the fighter planes, the helicopters. In fact, Taliban were not able to repair the helicopters and all, but they have been made able to operationalize with Pakistani assistance 2 Black Hawk helicopters they have been using. They can use Humvees, but they are gas guzzling. Neither Pakistan has money on a long-term basis to use those. They can possibly sell them, some of the armament to China for reverse engineering. But what is more dangerous is the small arms, the Kalashnikovs, the SLRs, self-loading rifles, those kind of things. The night vision goggles, things like that. They will be used both by Pakistan and Taliban. So yes, the problem was that the way this US withdrawal happened, negotiated by Donald Trump, who did not do anything during his tenure, left for the next successor government. And you know that there was insurrection in this country. There was not smooth transfer of power. So there's a lot of factors there. And in order for United States to move all that armament from Afghanistan to, let's say, bases in Germany or in Middle East, it would have costed them at least $200 billion to move $85 billion of armament. So they disabled whatever they could and left everything to rot there. So yes, there are risks there. Some of it will get into other terrorists' hands. After the first Afghan, the Mujahideen wars against the Soviet Union, Americans had given more than 1,000 Stinger missiles, which were shoulder-head Stinger missiles. And when the war was over, Americans left. Those Stinger missiles were sold in the black market. So those things will happen. I'm not the US government, but I can tell you the rationale was economic. To move that heavy equipment would have costed much more than the cost of the equipment. So they disabled whatever they could. Yes, Vijayji.
Thank
you. Please unmute yourself. Please unmute yourself.
I just wanted to add one more thing. All these armaments and things that we are talking about were moved by ship, dozens of ships and thousands of trucks by land from Balochistan through the tribal areas to Afghanistan over 20 years. And that was with Pakistani cooperation. But since then, the relationship between US and Pakistan has degenerated, and today will not permit them the land. And I read somewhere that it would need 2,000 plane loads of flights to move all that by plane, and it was not feasible. And that's why they moved it by land into Afghanistan in the first place. So that was a major reason they left it behind. And of course, Biden was very incompetent in the way he did the whole thing anyway. That complicated the whole thing. But the main thing is it all came by ship and by road. Thousands of tons of heavy stuff. There's no way you can evacuate that. And so they have disabled as much as they can.
Any more questions?
So, Adityanjee, one of the point which you were making earlier, and I think we all talk about Pakistan, Taliban was created by Pakistan, no matter what they say right now, 120. If it becomes an annex of Pakistan, we are calling it AFPAC region. So they are, it's like expansionism policy. They are just increasing the territory.
Well, this is what I mentioned that when I was talking about strategic depth. So under Ziaul Haq, who was the dictator, military dictator, this policy was conceptualized and implemented. The idea was to compensate for loss of East Pakistan wing, to have some sort of alliance or federation with Afghanistan, both being Islamic countries, so that there's a one large Islamic country. And that's why they accepted, I think, 3-4 million Afghan refugees into their territory. And again, the concept of nation state is ephemeral in the concept of ummah. So if you're talking about a caliphate, nation state may be a casualty. If you have a bigger state, which is Islamic State. So that has been Pakistan's policy. And that is what they have tried to do. They have tried to erase their Indian influences, their Indian culture, even impacts of Persian culture. What I said that they were doing Arabization and Wahhabization of Pakistani and Afghan society, de-Afghanize, de-Persianize, and de-Indianize those two Muslim societies. So they've changed their lingo, certain expressions. In Pakistan, they no longer use the word Khuda. They use Allah, because Khuda is Persian. Allah is, they no longer use the word Ramzan. They say Ramadan.
It's a very interesting point you are bringing, and that should be in Indian context, in the Indian Muslim context, that Indian Muslim community, not that majority of them relate to them, but nonetheless, whichever small portion, even if they are trying to relate, they must be understanding that the Islam of Pakistan, of Afghanistan, they do not follow the Indian Islam per se. It's a totally different. Their sources are coming from Turkey and those areas where the whole language is different. They don't speak Urdu.
It is true to a certain extent, but the inspiration for Taliban is actually Deobandi madrasas.
Saharanpur.
So let's not be complacent that it is something different. The ideology, the original ideology is Deobandi.
But
okay,
at some time, sure.
Yeah. What Vivekji was telling on similar setting means there is Indian Muslim and other Muslim. Nasruddin Shah has made a statement, and that has been criticized by most Indian Muslim groups. All he has said that we are Muslims, we are Indian Muslims, and that has been criticized. So
I think that is kind of diversion from the topic of Afghanistan, but what you say is true, and I'm aware of that. And this is the point I'm trying to make. The Westphalian nation state, as conceptualized by Treaty of Westphal, is not recognized by the Ummah. When you have the concept of caliphate, that transcends the concept of a nation state geopolitically. And that is what we are dealing in AFPAC region.
And that was also the reason for Muplas in 1919 or 1920s.
Yes.
So
thank you, Adityanjee. May I request our national president, Dr. Purohit, to give some closing remark, and then I will come to Dr. Adityanjee also.
I really again say that I enjoyed that one. And thank you for the people who came and listened to that wonderful lecture. I think we'll learn a lot. And being a physician, I've never seen any physician knowing that much knowledge of the history. And I really appreciate that because usually the physicians are more in the whole wall, just taking care of the patients and don't know anything about the world. But this is the first time I heard that such a wonderful history my colleague has given, and it was really appreciate that. Thank you again for giving us such a good lecture and learning the history from you. Thank you.
So Adityanjee has something more to say, please.
Yes, so I had this think tank called Council for Strategic Affairs. Council for Strategic Affairs conducts a roundtable discussion once a month and a distinguished lecture once a month. So we had a distinguished lecture by Commodore Sheshadri Vasan recently on concept of ocean sovereignty and China's aircraft program. On Saturday, 9/11, Council of Strategic Affairs is doing a roundtable discussion by 4 strategic and military experts on global challenges of jihadi terrorism from post-US withdrawal of Afghanistan. It's on Saturday, 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. If you have time, please join. The links will be sent to all of you. Kindly register through Eventbrite, and we can carry some of this discussion further because situation on the ground is still evolving. Every hour there is a change or whatever. So we shall have further discussion on challenges from that region on 9/11.
Thank you, Adityanjee. Bhishmji, do you want to say something before we close?
You all said a great thing. I mean, it's a wonderful presentation and everybody did a good job. And of course, he's a doctor of different kind. He's a psychiatrist. So therefore, he goes to the minds of everybody. So therefore, Prohitji, he's a different kind of doctor.
I saluted you twice before. I think I saluted third time because I've never seen anybody.
This is just
the history and especially being a physician.
He is gone beyond mind, yes. Okay, and body. Okay, that's a good thing.
Yes.
So thank you, everyone. We conclude today's session by now.
I think it's definitely them. Okay. Thank you.